My 37F husband, 39M, went to a work dinner with a woman and was gone 5 hours, wasn't where he said he'd be, and wouldn't respond to my calls and texts. I kicked him out, and he says I'm overreacting. Can anyone help me make sense of what happened here? My husband of 6 years works in a field where sales reps are constantly vying to get him to use their products. One of the ways they do this is by putting on dinners at upscale restaurants, think expensive steakhouses, and inviting groups to come listen to a presentation about the product in exchange for a free steak dinner. So far this year, my husband has attended upwards of 40 of these dinners. I find this a little excessive, especially considering we have a 3-year-old and a 5-month-old at home, and I rarely get a reciprocal night out. For context, we've been out together without the kids 4 times in the past year. I have asked him to cut back on these dinners, but he refuses, saying he hopes to leverage these relationships into brand-sponsored speaking opportunities that could become a temporary source of secondary income. To his credit, this has happened before and he made some good money before his stint as a speaker ended. Anytime I complain about the number of dinners he attends, he accuses me of not caring about our financial situation, or even outright trying to sabotage it. It is my understanding that he attends far more of these dinners than most people in his field. Okay, on to the dinner in question. Last week he forwarded me a screenshot of a text from a sales rep who said she would be in town for 2 nights and wanted to have dinner with just him while she was there. This is fairly unusual, as most dinners are group affairs with friends and colleagues. On one other occasion he has met with a sales rep one-on-one, but it was an older man. On this occasion, it was an attractive woman around our age. I looked her up on the socials. They agreed to meet on Monday at 6:30 at a nice tapas restaurant in an expensive part of town because, according to my husband, it was close to her hotel. Made sense, though I raised an eyebrow at his phrasing. He got annoyed, but I pointed out that it was a dumb thing to say to your wife when you're meeting a woman for dinner at a nice restaurant. He left the house at 6:04. For context, I am extremely sleep-deprived. I'm up with the new baby several times a night, and my husband has refused to participate in night feedings. So, by 9 o'clock I was tired and really wanted to sleep, but the baby was colicky and crying, and it was keeping my toddler awake. I texted my husband to find out when he thought he'd be home so I could have a sense how long it'd be before I could sleep. In the text I said it was NBD, just give me a ballpark idea of when you'll be home. He didn't respond. He wears an Apple Watch and is constantly responding to texts on his phone, so it was annoying to me that he couldn't give me an ETA after 3 hours at dinner. I called him at 9:15 and he sent me straight to voicemail. I called again at 9:30 with the same result. At this point I texted and told him I was calling the restaurant. When I did, the host told me there was no one in the restaurant, and he could confidently say that no one matching my husband's description had been into the restaurant at all that night. I texted that I was calling his parents to see if they had heard from him. They hadn't. Finally, at almost 10 o'clock, I texted and told him not to come home. 15 minutes after my last text, he sent me an automated text from his GPS app telling me he'd be home by 10:20 p.m. I texted again and told him to go to his parents' house. He showed up anyway and I wouldn't let him in. He didn't have keys. He said I was acting crazy. He said the tapas restaurant was more like a sports bar, so they went to a nicer place across the street. He said his phone was in his pocket on silent, except he had to have declined the calls in order to send me straight to voicemail. He said he was trying to generate revenue for our family. He said my self-esteem was not his problem. He said my behavior had better be a symptom of PMDD. He said I was creating events in my mind. Long story short, I didn't let him in. He slept at his parents' and came over to the house in the morning to get his stuff. He's there again tonight, after going to yet another dinner, and likely will be for the foreseeable future. I think his behavior was shady and disrespectful to me, but he thinks I've blown the whole thing out of proportion. I'm so tired that I can't make sense of it, and I need to ask Reddit if I'm justified in my anger, or if he's right and I'm blowing this out of proportion. What do you think? Thanks in advance. TLDR, my husband went to a work dinner with a woman, was gone for 5 hours, wasn't where he said he'd be, and wouldn't respond to my calls and texts. Now he's calling me crazy and paranoid. Story 2. Update, 26M, 3 years with fiancé, 24F. She's got me paying for her entire family. Is this getting out of hand? Sorry it took time to update, it has been a hectic few days. I didn't expect this whole situation to blow up like it has. I thought I was just making a decision for my own well-being, but the amount of support and advice I've received has been overwhelming. Thank you to everyone who offered their thoughts. Seriously, it's been helpful in ways I didn't anticipate. I told her I can't go through with the wedding. I explained that the constant financial stress, the guilt, tripping, and the complete lack of boundaries from her family have made it not possible for me to see a healthy future with her. Her initial reaction was a mix of anger and tears, but when her family found out, they started harassing me with messages, accusing me of abandoning her and claiming I need to panagitin or to be accountable for her because she was a virgin before we met. She helped me a lot. Their messages quickly escalated into threats, making it clear they were trying to pressure me into staying in the relationship and continuing to support them financially. On top of that, when I mentioned that I'd been so stressed I was considering getting a vasectomy because I can't imagine raising children in such a toxic environment, her family's harassment only intensified. They're now demanding I go through with the wedding or pay up. Thankfully, my parents have been an incredible source of support through all of this. They're fully behind my decision to call off the wedding and have even offered to help me handle the harassment legally if needed. I've saved all the messages and threats to protect myself in case this goes further. I also told my fiancé she needs to move out of my place. Now she's refusing to leave unless I give her 6 months or a year of living costs and rent up front. It feels like she's just trying to take advantage of me one last time before the relationship is officially over. This has been one of the most draining experiences of my life, but I'm determined to move forward and protect myself. Please don't post to other platforms, thanks. Story 3. Update. Dad, 62M, won't spend Christmas with BIL, 28M, and Mum, 60F, is blaming my wife, 36F. Hi, I know how much this community loves an update, so I thought I would give you one as things seem to be sorting themselves out, kind of. After I wrote my last post, a few things happened in the next couple of hours. First thing was that I spoke to my grandparents on my mum's side. They were there when this all happened, but they're like my mum and just constantly try to keep the peace. That's where she gets it from. They were supposed to be spending Christmas with my mum this year but had changed their minds and decided to spend it with my uncle instead. They have made the decision to not be around Steve either as he causes too much drama. They asked if they could come and see us and Jack on the 23rd before they head off to my uncle's, which I happily agreed to. This really surprised me and it outright shocked my mum, as like I said they are the biggest take the high road type people I've ever met, but even they'd had enough. The next thing that happened was my dad called to let me know that Steve and Sarah had now decided that they want Kay to make a public apology in front of the whole family and admit she was lying and that the family loves Steve. He was laughing as he told me this and called them delusional, so any small chance of a superficial apology went out the window. The third thing that happened was Jack getting home from after-school club with a recorder that I am sorely tempted to shove up the teacher's backside. So all in all, it wasn't a great day. Through talking to people on here, I also realized that Steve has been trying to push Kay and I out of the family. Organizing trips that he knows we would be able to go on. We wouldn't have gone on them anyway, as a weekend away with him sounds worse than a paper cut to the eyeball, and him constantly trying to get my dad away from Kay whenever we are all together. I think this is because he is jealous of Kay and Dad's relationship as they're very close and go on trips to classic car shows several times a year together, usually with my granddad as well. Anyway, things went quiet for a few days until the weekend. Our town has a big Christmas fair that runs from November through December, and we always go to it with Mom, Dad, Granddad, Kay's mum. We decided to cheer my mum up a bit to go on Sunday and then out for dinner after. My mum was told that if Sarah or Steve showed up then we would all leave, and she promised they wouldn't be there. Things were a bit awkward at first, but settled after a while. At one point Jack got my mum and dad to take him on the giant snow slide, and as my mum walked back over to us she had tears in her eyes. I pulled her to one side to see what was going on, and she said that whilst waiting in line, Jack had said he was happy Uncle Steve wasn't here. When my mum asked why, he said that Uncle Steve was a bad man. My mum tried to say that he wasn't, but in typical stubborn 4-year-old fashion, he had argued and said he learned in school that people who say mean things all the time are bad people, and Uncle Steve said mean things all the time, so he was a bad man and that he didn't like him. There had been a case of bullying in his class a few weeks ago, and the teacher had done a lesson on how wrong bullying is, so I think that's where this came from. This finally broke through to my mom. If even a 4-year-old can see what a horrible prick the man is, then she had to as well. She said that she felt stuck because she hated Steve and agreed with everything that Kay has said, but she loves Sarah and doesn't want to isolate her. I told her I would always be there for her, but I wasn't putting myself, Jack or Kay through being around Steve again, and she needed to think about what she wants. Not what I want or Dad or Kay or Jack or her parents or Sarah or Steve, but what she wants. She went quiet and then said that Kay's mum had told her she was welcome at hers for Christmas if she wanted to, and that she could decide it on Christmas Day if she wanted. Kay's mum would save her a plate. We went back to the group, and a little while later I saw Mum and Kay's mum having a deep discussion whilst walking behind us. Neither will say what they talked about, but Mum seemed a bit happier after their talk. They have also been talking since, as yesterday my mum told me that she will be coming to Kay's mum's for Christmas, and they've been talking about going shopping together next week. When Mum told Sarah after calling me, Sarah predictably lost her mind and said that Mum was choosing us over her. My mum told her she was choosing to have a good Christmas rather than being belittled and made miserable, all for the sake of Steve and his so-called honesty. Sarah then called me and asked if I was happy that I'd won. She then did the unforgivable and used a few homophobic slurs towards me and Kay and called Jack the bastard of a whore. I ended the call, blocked her everywhere, and then let my family know what had happened and that I never wanted to speak to her again. They're all as appalled as I am, and my Granny, Mum's mum, called Sarah and apparently told her she was dead to her, as she won't have a bigot in the family. Sarah has been trying to reach out to apologize because she knows she has stepped over the unforgivable line, but I've just kept blocking the fake accounts that she's making on IG. Steve tried reaching out to my dad after this, and when he eventually answered, Steve tried to say that Sarah was just angry and didn't mean it. According to Mum, Dad ended up giving him a verbal lashing and told him that he was the worst thing that had ever happened to Sarah and our family. My dad has told Sarah he is disgusted with her, but will be there for her if she leaves Steve. Until then, good luck. Mum has gone low contact as well, but wants to keep the door open so that Sarah isn't completely isolated. I had a few people saying that Steve may be abusive towards Sarah, but I really don't think he is. He usually acts like a dick when the attention isn't on him. He knows that when he says dickish things, then all the attention is on him and he revels in it. After Sarah's outburst, I just think that they're both toxic and feed off each other's toxicity. She lets him get away with the things he says because she gets pleasure out of watching us all bite our tongues and keep quiet. So, Mum's angry, Dad's angry, our 3 grandparents are angry, extended family are angry, and Kay is being my rock, but I can tell she's really angry about what she said towards Jack. I'm just sad and done with it all. At least now I know what she really thinks about Jack, Kay, and myself, so there's that. Not the prefect update, but we move on. It will be nice this Christmas to have both sides of the family together for the first time and not have to worry about Steve being a dick, but I'm sad that is how my relationship with my sister has ended. I'm trying to get into the Christmas spirit, but it's a tough one right now. The only things that are make me smile are Kay and Jack being goofy idiots to cheer me up, however the recorder can go to hell. I curse whoever invented the thing, like seriously, fuck you. Thanks for all the support in my original post and opening my eyes to a few things. Maybe internet strangers are the way to go for advice after all. Hope you all have a good Christmas/holidays. Story 4. Update 2. How do I, 27M, ask my wife, 32F, if she cheated on me without destroying our relationship if she hasn't? It's been quite a while since my last post, and over the last month I've been getting so many people asking for an update on my life, but more specifically asking about the results paternity test. A lot has changed since my last update, especially the living arrangements with my wife. I can happily say that I am the father. I was with my wife in the hospital birthing suite when my son was born and stayed with her the 5 days at the maternity ward. We got a paternity test even though I was fairly sure that he was mine when he was born. He looks a bigger-eyed version of me when I was a newborn. About a week after getting the swabs done, the positive parentage results came back. Before my son was born, my wife and I had been living separately, with the only having interactions us having would be her sending me daily messages wishing me well and wishing me good night. After my son was born, we were still living apart, but I would go over every day to help feed and change him. We still had minimal interactions and would only really talk to each other once a week for our mandatory marriage counseling that we had go to in order to get a divorce. We had seen psychologists from 2 different clinics, and I felt like they were both trying to gaslight me into thinking that I was being unreasonable for wanting to divorce my cheating wife, and one of them had even said that I shouldn't expect a modern marriage to be completely monogamous in this day and age. The first sessions of counseling at the first clinic seemed pretty standard, a lot of telling each other how we feel with the counselor in the background only speaking when providing prompts to get us talking. If the counseling session continued as it was, it would have been fine, but as soon as she suggested that we should accept the idea of bringing other people into the bedroom to better understand and connect with one another, is when I started looking for different psychologists. The second psychologist we saw spent 2 sessions trying to convince me that it's normal for married couples to have sex with people outside of the marriage, and that it would be selfish of me to make the baby grow up without a father figure in the home even if he isn't mine. This was before we got the paternity test results back. From that moment on, I decided that there was no point to me going to marriage counseling. I told my wife that I'd put the divorce proceeding on hold only if she agreed to sign a postnup, which she immediately signed as soon as I gave them to her. My plan is to just wait a year before filing for divorce without any restrictions and bullshit mandatory marriage counseling, and now at least my assets are somewhat protected. Currently I have moved back in with my wife but are still sleeping in separate rooms. I decided to move back in just to make it easier for me to spend time with my son and to also be able to look after him when my wife and her parents need a break. After being with him for what is almost a month now, I decided that I would be physically present in my son's life and help raise him. I believe that it is my duty as his biological father to give him the best life possible, no matter the discomfort I feel of having to interact with his mother. What I am trying to think about now is how that is going to possible after the divorce and how that will impact his emotional and mental development. Are there other people out there who are able to raise their children this way, and if so, how are you coping with the arrangement? And thank for all those who were concerned about my love life, but nothing is happening. I haven't though about dating or sex since finding out about my wife's cheating. Story 5. Found out my 33F fiancé, 31M, used to sleep with married women in his 20s, and his justification has me questioning everything. How do I approach this? TLDR, my finance admitted to sleeping with married women in his 20s and that this is the reason why he's such a good and attentive partner. I don't know whether to believe him or whether this is a sign of what kind of person he is. Hi everyone, I'm feeling really confused and conflicted right now and could use some advice. Throwaway account because this feels very personal. My fiancé, both in our early 30s, has always seemed like the perfect guy. He's attentive, emotionally intelligent, and just gets me. I've always felt so lucky to be with him, but recently, I stumbled upon something that has shaken me to my core. We were having a deep conversation about our pasts, and the topic of past relationships came up. He admitted that in his 20s, he used to regularly sleep with married women. His reasoning: they wanted it, and I never pursued women who were in happy marriages. According to him, most of these women approached him, and he claimed that 90% of married women are willing to cheat if the opportunity presents itself. When I asked why he thought that, he told me it was based on his experience. He said some of these women cheated with him for extended periods before he got bored and ended it. It made me feel sick just listening to him describe it so casually. But here's the kicker: he admitted that one reason he's such an amazing partner now is because, during those affairs, he kept a sort of mental list of all the things these women would complain about their husbands. He used that information to be better. He even joked that his education came from hearing what not to do in relationships. When I pushed him on whether he felt any guilt or regret about helping destroy marriages, he brushed it off. He said these women were the ones who wanted to cheat, and he only gave them what they wanted. He even framed it like he was doing some kind of service, helping them realize their dissatisfaction. He insists that I changed him, that I'm the reason he wants to settle down and leave all that behind. But I can't shake the feeling that his past says something disturbing about his character. I know people grow and change, but I feel like I've been handed this big, ugly truth that I can't unsee. I don't even know what I'm asking here. How can I talk to him about my feelings? Story 6. My 18F, BF, 21M, is struggling with my vow to wait until marriage, and I think we need to break up. I've been seeing a guy who I really like, and he officially asked me to be his GF last weekend with balloons and a custom pizza. Pepperoni was shaped into a question mark, which I thought was adorable. I told him that as long as he was comfortable with the fact that I don't want to have sex before marriage, that it would be fine. He stayed in my room over the weekend and he was very handsy, and when I asked him to stop he kept on repeating how beautiful he found me and would stop for a few minutes then start out again. It really upset me and I wasn't really sure what to say then other than to get up and leave the room. I haven't talked to him about it yet, but I think we should break up. I just feel horrible about myself now. Do you think he lied about being okay with saving for marriage? Do you think he is just assuming I'll give in? Is this grounds to break up after only just starting dating? TLDR, my BF is struggling with my vow to wait until marriage, and I think we need to break up.